Hi, welcome back to the Blender Crash Course. In this video, we'll explore the different modifiers. It's going to be a bit of a longer video since there's a lot to cover. I will only focus on the modifiers that are used often. There's a couple of modifiers that are very niche, and I will invite you to explore on your own. So let's get to it. So modifiers, what are they? They are sort of filters you put on top of a mesh, and it's non-destructive. It doesn't modify anything in an edit mode. It just does something on top, which is very useful. So we have our cube, and then we're going to go in the rightmost panel there with the little wrench. We're going to click on it, and then have access to the modifier panel. It might look a bit different if you're in an old version of Blender and you're gonna have like categories there in a larger square. It doesn't matter. It's just it's horizontal instead of vertical. You should have the same modifiers, except for the array one, which changed a bit. So let's get to it. Let's do the array modifier. So the array modifier is kind of neat. They changed it a bit. So you can, for instance, move there and then also rotate, for instance. This allows you to rotate each step, for instance, or you can also even scale. See? So this is going to apply one action from this mesh to this mesh and then going to repeat it. So the first action is moving, so it's going to do this and move our second object that way, which is, again, pretty useful. There's a couple of things you can do. There's also the circle one. So it's going to work better if you have, you can move along this way. You can move the mesh. And then you have a lot of options. You can change the axis, but you can also change the alignment of the rotation. We might see it better with, let's see, a mesh that has direction like this one. So let's do the array one and then go back to circle. You have that way, but you can also unalign or change whichever is the up axis, for instance. You can change all these options, like for instance, to have something that follows along this line. You can also have randomizers there, so you can change a bit of offset there, or even uniform scale. You can change the scale that way. It's, once again, pretty useful. And have random, also rotation. You can also have the merge option. It makes it so if you have like objects that are really close, it works better with the line one. It's going to merge the vertices there and there. Not really useful, but if you do a wall, for instance, that way, it can be pretty useful. Because it's going to merge every vertices there. As you can see, if I do any operation, I only have access to this one. Because it's a modifier, it goes on top of the edit mode. This is it for the array one. Then I will get to the bevel. So the bevel one, it does exactly what it does in edit mode, which is add a bevel. You have the same options there. So there was the profile thing where we could change to, for instance, cornice. You can see those. It is very neat. Let's go back to super ellipse and get back this to 2. So by default, it bevels every angle that is over 30 degrees. So if I have an angle that is like, see, if this angle gets less than 30 degrees, it doesn't bevel. This is a bit dirty. We might want to select which edge we want to bevel. So to do this, you can select edges. Well, first let's unselect everything. And there in limit method, you can press weight. And then none of this is beveled, which is perfect. It's exactly where we want. We have no edges selected. So once you have this, you can select edges you want, and in the right panel, if this panel doesn't appear, you can press N or press the little arrow there to make it pop. And you can change mean bevel weight, not this one, but this one. And then you can choose which edges you want beveled non-destructively. We will see a subdivision surface method where we use bevels as support loops, which I think is better than creases. So this is it for the bevel mode. You can also have there a overlay wireframe if you want on top of your mesh. It's not a see-through wireframe, but it's just so you see topology. If you press shift when you slide something, it's going to go a bit slower. See, that is very hard to control. If I press shift, it's going to go a bit slower. So this is it for the bevel. Then there's the Boolean. So Boolean, classic. Let's say we want to, let's close the shape first. Yeah, something like this. Let's say I add a sphere. So if you want to place the sphere very quickly there, you put the 3D cursor there and then Shift S and selection to cursor. It's going to move this very quickly without activating snapping. It's a quick way to move. Shift right click and then Shift S selection to cursor. It's going to move it neatly. So if I want to remove this from this, I can go in my Boolean and then use the picker there and pick the sphere. You can see it's going to remove. It's a bit hard to see, so personally when I use Booleans, I can go inside the sphere and go to object properties there, and then in viewport display, I can go them and click wire. So it forces wireframe in solid mode just for one object. And then you can see the live Boolean. I think it has been redone in 5.0, so it's a bit faster. It's pretty good. If for some reason your Boolean doesn't work well, you can also switch to fast. It's different, but sometimes, sorry, it doesn't exist anymore. It used to be a mode called fast there in 4.0. So you might have it, you might not. Just switch between different methods if one doesn't work. You can also have self-intersection and hole tolerant on. This might make the mesh a bit heavier, so be careful, only use those if you really need to. There's also a union. So what does union do? It just merges the two meshes. And then you have difference. You have intersect, sorry. Intersect is where both meshes meet. You get another mesh. It's pretty much the inverse of difference. But what if I want this to be applied to access those vertices? Well, let's just remove the bevel for now. I can just go there and click apply, and then I have access to every vertices. Be mindful that this sort of destroys the non-destructive approach, so you can't go back on your Boolean that way. So I highly encourage to do a copy of the mesh when you do those kind of action. Shift D, and then you apply. And then you can hide with H. You can see on the top right, see, this goes hidden. Allows us to have the merge version there. And I'm going to just hide the other version. So you still have a backup somewhere. So this is it for the Boolean. It's going to go faster after, like there's a couple we don't use. The build we don't use. It's just a time. It's very weird. With a timeline, you can just go and have something built. Doesn't matter. Not useful. Curve to tube. This is kind of useful for curves, but we will see this later. Decimate. You can decimate a mesh that way. Can be useful. There's a cool trick with it. For instance, if we divide a mesh, so in edit mode, I can right click subdivide, couple divisions. I can go to decimate and then unsubdivide there. So it only works with even numbers. If you do an uneven number, it's gonna look a bit weird. But it allows you to, it tries to guess how the mesh looked before subdivision. There's a really cool trick with this. For instance, if I have some sort of complex shape like this, and then I bevel. No, let's not do it that way, but yeah, I have some shape like this. I can use the unsubdivide there, so the decimate unsubdivide, to have diagonals. This is really useful because if you apply this, then I can have something like this with inset. I can make a complex pattern very easily. This is sort of a neat trick you can do with the decimate modifier. So, decimate, that's it. Mask we don't use. Mirror. So mirror is a symmetry. So right now it doesn't do anything because our object is already symmetrical. If I go in edit mode and move it so the origin stays there, it's gonna do a mirror along the origin axis. You can check different axes and have it mirror. Problem is you're gonna have a duplicate mesh there. So you can always have bisect on, and bisect is gonna remove everything on the other side before doing the mirror. So you don't have any problems. See how it works? It's neat. See, like, the stuff that is underneath the line, it doesn't get taken into account. And you get some neat, you don't get, like, duplicated geometry on the other side. If it looks weird, you might have to check flip, so you use the other side instead. You can also use other objects as temporary centers for the mirror. You can just go there in mirror object and pick another object to use as your center. See? It uses this object. So if I move this object, see? It moves the center of the mirror. You can also use what we call empties. So you find them there with Shift A and then place this object wherever you want and use it as a temporary mirror object. This is useful if you have like a couple objects that you want to all use the same center without moving their origin. I can pick this and there, see? I can even rotate. If I rotate 45 degrees, it allows us to do symmetry for a corner of an object, for instance. It's really useful. For instance, you had a cathedral or something, you want the symmetry of the pillar to work like vertically, so you want the origin to be there, but you also want the pillars to be replicated on the other side of the room without just duplicating perfectly and measuring whatever you want. So this could be the center of the room. That should be it for the mirror. You can deactivate the modifiers that way. Be mindful, if you deactivate that way, it's not going to deactivate for the render, so you also have to deactivate for the render there. Otherwise, you're going to have difference between your viewport and your render. It doesn't really matter if you're not rendering, but just to be mindful of this. Then you have remesh. The mutual resolution for sculpting, we don't care about this now, for now. Remesh, it's going to do a voxel remesh. Could be useful, especially for a base for sculpting. There's a couple. You can use blocks. You can use smooth, you can use sharp. That one is a bit weird, but yeah, I don't know. Voxel one is the strong one. It's similar to Z remesher in ZBrush. Then you have the screw. We don't use scatter on surface. Screw is gonna rotate an object around the center. So let's say we have a plane. I'm gonna delete one of the vertices. So I'm gonna delete and vertex. Then I'm gonna just do the shape, for instance, of a vase. And then I can add a screw modifier and change the axis to Y. And then I can do what is similar to a lathe modifier in other software. This is a good time to show you something I missed in the edit mode section, which is the vertex bevel. So let's just deactivate the screw for now. If I want to bevel this or do a fillet, I can't do Ctrl B, it doesn't work. I can do Ctrl Shift B, and then it allows us to have this happening. Ctrl Shift B, which is a bit tricky on the hands. And there you have like smooth surface, and then you can activate your screw back. And you have this. There might be a couple errors. You can just go in normal and calculate order there, and it fixes this. You can even change the amount of steps. So if you want like, for instance, a triangular shape, which is pretty annoying to do otherwise, you can have just this and change it anytime you want. For instance, to have a square shape or a pentagon shape. So this is it for, you can change the angle to 360. You can also deactivate smooth shading if you don't want it. One very important modifier I completely forgot to add, so this is why I edited this in, is the subdivision surface. So you access it there by adding there, or you press Ctrl 1, 2, or 3 to have different level of subdivisions. This is equivalent to the Turbo Smooth in 3ds Max. So what you can do is select some edges and sharpen them with Shift E. Let me put back the screencast keys. And then we're back. So I can Shift E to sharpen or not, but this is a bit inconvenient, I find. So I usually use the bevel modifier with 2 segments and the profile at 1. Why? Let's just check how it looks. This is the reason I'm not using a 0.5 profile, because it's sort of, it sort of affects the mesh in a way I don't want. So if I put a 1, I have like support edges there. So let's just see how it looks. And then by changing the width here, I can have something that is smooth or not. And as we saw previously, you can go there and put weight and then choose which edges you want sharp. So this is, in my opinion, the proper way to use this subdivision surface with this modifier stack. So you can just adjust very easily the sharpness there, then have something that works very well. Let's just disable the wireframe, and then you can keep going your way and adding detail that way. And you can sharpen or not. You can also add edge loops to have a sharper or softer curve there. This modifier is very, very useful if you do not know about it, but I am assuming you did if you switching from another program. Nope. Solidify. So solidify, let's say you have a shape like this, and you could just take the shape and Alt-E, extrude face along normals. You have a couple errors there, probably because we have issues with the normal. You can always check this there with face orientation, and then you can see which face are flipped. So you can just Shift N to recalculate the normals, and then you don't have any issue. Shift N. Then Alt E, you can extrude face along normals. So this is the way to do a thickness. Problem is, if you change the shape, you're kind of screwed, because like if I want to change this, it makes it very thin there. It's ugly. So let's go back and then just add a solidify modifier. This allows us to have a thickness that is non-destructive. So I can keep doing my shape. For instance, if this was the shape of a very weird room, I can check even thickness there to fix this corner. I can just do my shape and then F to close, and I'm good. And I can change the thickness anytime. You can just also have something there and do a bevel if you want to just add, for instance, an opening. And there we go. This is it for the solidify modifier. Triangulate, it just triangulates. This can be activated on the exporter of FBX exporter in Blender anyway. Weld we will not use. Wireframe is kind of weird. It makes a mesh like on the edges. Can be useful to make, for instance, a shape of a building. Like let's say we have this, and then we subdivide a couple times. Right click subdivide, and then we can have like we can duplicate, and then have this one have the wireframe. Allows you to have like some, you know, some cool shapes pretty easily. Last one we see in the generate tab, and then I think I will cut this video in two to have the deformer part. Actually, the deformer should be fast. So let's say I have floating vertices. So I took a plane, I delete a corner, I have floating vertex. I can extrude, and then I can put this skin modifier. It doesn't have anything to do with rigging or skinning. It's just badly named. You can put skin, and then it's going to do this. Very useful to do tree blocking. So I can take any point and press Alt S. Sorry, Control A, my bad. To change the thickness of this. It even works with the proportion editing we've seen before. So I press O and then Control A, and then you can taper the shape progressively. And you can also do corners that way. But yeah, you can just duplicate parts and then have something neat happening. You can just connect stuff there. Then thicken maybe this part. Yeah. It's very similar to Z-spheres in ZBrush. So this is it for the generate modifiers. And then we're going to see very briefly the deformers. So deform, you got armature for the skin, we don't need this. Curves we will see later. There's, I thought there was a lattice one that automatically did a lattice now. Maybe not on this version. I was pretty sure there was. Okay. So the lattice one, there should be an option to have automatic lattice now, but maybe it's not on, I don't know. So let's create a lattice. A lattice is a sort of control point like FFDs in 3ds Max. You can create a lattice. So let's just put a 3D cursor there so it's going to be easier. I can create a lattice. Oh, okay, sorry, it was there. I can just do lattice from selected, and it's going to automatically put a box around it. Otherwise, in older versions, you would have a lattice there, and you had to scale, not go in edit mode, do not go in edit mode yet, and just make it cover the object. But now you can just press Shift A, lattice deform selected. And then you have a bounding box. That is pretty neat. Automatically, it's going to create a lattice modifier, and you see there, it's going to pick automatically the lattice one. So now, if I go in edit mode there, I can just move without soft selection. I can move a point and deform the mesh. That is really useful because you can go there and slide it back if you want. So it's non-destructive. I can also go there in the green tab, data object properties, and change, for instance, the number of points in my lattice. So I have more control. And then I can always go back to edit mode to edit the shape without any deformation. Or I can also press this to have it deformed in edit mode. It's not going to apply, it's just a preview. You can always deactivate. That's it for the lattice deformer. And then we are going to go to shrink wrap. We don't use it for now. Simple deform. So simple deform, the base one, twist. If you put it in Z, it's just going to twist something. I use it for ropes, for instance. Let's have a cylinder. Let's divide. Let's add a couple edge loops and just have 3 cylinders that way. And you can just have a simple deform in Z and just have a rope pattern, for instance. And then you can just array it vertically. So let's put 0 there and put 1. And there you go, you have a rope. That way you could also have merge on, so it merges the vertices there. So simple deform, by default it twists. You can also bend. See, if you also offset this a bit, like it does it from the pivot point. So let's say we have something like this. You see, it sort of changes the way it bends. And then you can have this taper. It tapers along an axis. So let's put it back there. And then, for instance, in Z, you can see what it does. It tapers the mesh. Stretch is a bit similar, but it squashes. Can be useful for animation, for instance. Those modifiers you can stack. So let's say we have this, and then we want an array. And then we want a bend. So simple deform bend. Let's just rotate the base one 90 degrees. Then I can do some stuff there. So let's just like do some extrude, for instance. So I have this. It's pretty neat. But I can also have another simple deform, but this one twists, and I put it before. And I put it in, for instance, in X. So what it does is, first it twists it, and then it bends it from there to there. So you have a stack of modifiers. You can do really complex shape. Even if I wanted like 2 turns, you can't go over 360 unless you type it. If you type it, you can go 720. So that might be better for the twist, actually. Yeah. You can get like very complex shape, and you can still go back to this. Let's just 360. Still go back to this and edit and have stuff happening. So it's non-destructive. That would be really useful for doing, for instance, a tire for a car. You have complex patterns that you can just repeat along the circle. So that is it for modifiers. It's I think it's the lengthiest video we have because there's a lot to cover. And yeah, I think in the next videos we'll see the rendering, we'll see materials, we'll see UVs, and a couple of other stuff. See you there.